Exfilzone is unfortunately in a very, very vulnerable state right now, and I want to just say I'm not making this video because I don't like the game and I want to see the developers at Caveman fail. I'm making this video because I love Exfilzone and I would love it for it to be a wildly successful game. However, the direction that the game is going and the choices that the developers are making are actively shrinking the player base and polarizing people who play this game onto one side or another, and slowly is deteriorating what I thought once a very good community. The event that recently occurred that was a catalyst for all of this is the hack and the information leak of player data. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say whether Caveman did right or wrong and how they addressed it. I'm simply just going to say that the steps that they took after the fact are what's causing the current issues of the game, with the player base shrinking and people not wanting to come back to the game. Now, in addition to these choices that they have made that are having people not come back to this wipe, they're additionally making choices for after this wipe that is simply just going to split the player base, and it's just not long-term helpful. Now, the first issue that I'm going to jump into is the compensation that Caveman gave for after the hacking incident. I do think that giving compensation was a good idea. I'm not opposed to giving compensation. However, the amount of compensation that Caveman gave was way overkill. I'm pretty sure everybody knows what the compensation is at this point, but for those of you who don't, Caveman split it into kind of three different tiers. You have a shop that player can spend points on for tradables and high level gear. You have one free trader skip that you can use that will get you a full level with completing no tasks. And then you get 12 free task skips of your choice. Now, in theory, that sounds incredible. However, specifically focusing on the shop for a second and not even worrying about the free level or the task skip, people who use the shop instantly gain access to the highest tier of armor when their skill set nor their ammo match the gear that they're wearing. I have come across players in this game so many times after the compensation was divvied out that were wearing tan Malboss armors or IOTV Gen 3s and had tier 5 helmets and were using Mach 318 or T ammo in an AK or an M4. Unfortunately, good armor does not make a player better. And in addition to that, having the highest tier of gear and access to it instantly floods the economy, because bad players are going to go into the game with the best gear that they didn't earn, die, and we're instantly at an end game at this point when the progression that people have made doesn't match it. Now, I understand why Caveman did this, because there were multiple players in their Discord community who were complaining that they lost a lot of progression on the rollbacks. However, I'm still going to stand on the fact that Caveman announced multiple times that rollbacks were going to occur again, and people willingly chose to level their traders up and complete tasks knowing that that progression was going to set back. So actively, that is their fault. The other thing that was wildly overlooked during this is that for those who are playing on meta and playing on PC and have standalone, you get compensation twice actually. You can literally use your compensation from your standalone and from your PCVR, and they're considered separate instances of compensation. So if you simply use that for tradables, for example, for like high tier ammo, or just get a bunch of mall bosses, it just floods the economy further. Now, if something happens like this again, which hopefully it doesn't, and compensation is discussed, I think something that would be a better approach would be to give discounts in the current shop for things that people already have access to, or giving like free cosmetics to players. Maybe give a couple of quest skips if there's progression loss. When it becomes an issue is if compensation allows players who are not at endgame to instantly access endgame content without the skills nor the additional supporting gear to back it up. The other thing that Caveman recently announced is that they are going to be adding a PvE mode into this game. Now, I have a core issue with this because Exfilzone already has a very small player base, and you have a probably decent portion of the player base who doesn't like the PvP aspect to it. They just want to go and raid and find gear, which is fine. but extraction shooters have always been PvP oriented games. And if you add a PvE mode to the game, you are going to take an already small player base and split it further. Now, I will say that a PvE mode is good for new players. It can help them learn maps, it can reduce their gear fear, it can teach them the mechanics of the game. But we already have intro raids for the first 5 raids for new players where they will play what is essentially bot contractors. I will stand by this and say that I don't think there could be anything good that could come out of a permanent PvE mode for players to use. We already have practice raids where people can go in and only play against scabs, so adding a permanent PvE mode just does not help by splitting the player base more. Now, I will give Caveman a little bit of credit because they just released an update that nerfed our next biggest issue, which is leg meta. However, I will say that there's still work that needs to be done because 45 ACP rip still kills players in under half a second with very minimal effort. And additionally, the head is still considered in the calculation for leg damage, which is why people are dying so fast. For those of you who don't know how damage works in Exfilzone, if you have a blacked or a zeroed limb and a bullet hits it, the base damage of that round is going to spread evenly across your other limbs and parts of your body and distribute the damage. The reason leg meta is so viable is because the head, which has 35 health, is considered in that damage that's spread across the body. If Caveman wanted to do the simplest and most effective nerf to leg meta that would still leave it viable, they should take the head out of damage spread consideration when getting hit on a blacked limb. The reason that this works is because the next part of the body after the head that would allow you to die once zeroed is the chest, and the chest has 85 health. So if only the chest is considered, the health that you have against leg meta is effectively doubled, but leg meta still remains viable because even with having to go through 85 health, the time to kill is still under a half a second. Guys, thank you for watching my rant. I appreciate it. As I said at the very beginning of this video, I really do want Exfilzone to win. I want it to be the best extraction shooter because I believe it is the best extraction shooter. But leave your comments below, subscribe. I'm curious what you guys think of this wipe and what they can fix as well.